Okay, we'll reopen the meeting. It is 9:40. Our motion to extend the meeting is till 10:30. I do not know if our council will extend it past 10:30. So for those, we still have a huge stack of cards for an issue that is not on the council agenda or being voted on or discussed by the council. But we will continue to go through those as people are speaking. I would ask that you consider being judicious with your time because there's no way we're going to get through these cards, and I don't know that we're not going to get through the cards if people take the full 3 minutes, and I don't know if the council is going to extend it again past 10:30. The next 5 cards I have are Aaron Westbrook, Susan Vick, Consuelo Morin, Elijah Ross, and Ephraim Herring. So the first one is Aaron Westbrook. Hi, Aaron.
Hi. If you would have just said, come on down, I feel like there would have been a lot more excitement. Abortion was my #1 method of birth control my entire young adult life. And it allotted me the opportunity to be incredibly reckless and careless with my decision making, and it took away any responsibility on my part to use judgment. I was allowed the opportunity to be extremely promiscuous, and to cope with that, I partook in drugs and alcohol. And the kind of company that aligned me with was similar-minded folks that also use drugs and alcohol. I am 5 attorneys and 7 years deep into litigation for custody for my son. After we were first taken to a Planned Parenthood for an abortion when we found out that he was conceived from a one-night stand. And the father has still not decided that he's wanted to be a father any more than he did that day. But he has the right to be one. So just because abortion was legal, he thought that would be, we both thought that would make for an easy out. But abortion doesn't leave you without, it's not a perfect solution. And I'm not here to argue if we should all be Christian or what is or isn't a baby. There's been enough people that have done that, but abortion, it does leave marks, and it's not the solution. And now I've got, as a business owner here in McLennan County, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on litigation that we could be using to turn back into tax dollars and revenue and things to benefit this community, let alone to bless our own family. Not only that, but also we have a marriage of redemption marriage. My husband and I, my husband's been sober for 4 years. He's been an alcoholic for 30 some odd years, as a result of guilt and shame that he also carried from abortions that he was able to obtain while he was married to his wife, because abortion was just what you could do when it wasn't convenient to carry a child. And we're freed and forgiven from that, and our babies, we thank the Lord that they're in heaven. So I'm not standing from a place of being hurt. I have gone through rape. I don't dismiss any of that. But it was spoken to me when I conceived my child out of wedlock that he would provide, and I'm not here to say who that he is, but he did. And I've had the Buddhists and the Muslims and the agnostics and the atheists come alongside me, as well as the Church of Christ. And my child is 7 years old and won the Bible Award in kindergarten. But he just found out about this man that tried to walk out on him again and again and again and again, and not step up, not do the child support, not do the things, because he thought that he could have gotten out with just an abortion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have Susan Vick.
Hello, Council and Mayor. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I am speaking to an item that is not on the agenda, the budget, the proposed budget for 22-23, and you're wondering why. And that's because you are going to be working on this budget and thinking about the line items that are there. And the Cameron Park Zoo bond budget shortfall is one of those line items. So I wanted to give our thoughts. I'm current president of the Zoological and Botanical Society. And I wanted to say first that we have always worked well together, the county, the city, and the society, to create a fantastic zoo that we have. And fortunately, our city manager, Bradley, is very on board with the bond projects. And I'm very thankful he's put in the budget line item the full budget shortfall of $3.4 million. And I would strongly encourage y'all to approve that shortfall. The Zoo Commission has already met, and the 3 entities have all agreed to already pay $2 million of that $3.4 million shortfall. And we think it's very critical to do all this at the same time because the penguin exhibit, we're trying to do an educational exhibit and have an exhibit that meets our other standards, and we always do an excellent job with our exhibits, and we want people to learn about South Africa and other animals while they're there. And the rondables are really fascinating, and one of them we want to build will be a family restroom, which the zoo does not have. And this family restroom will also have an adult changing table, and that is often requested. And we know it's important to deal with the DEAI perspective and ADA requirements, so that's something we wanted to think about. We also know how important it is to do the vet education building at the same time we do the penguin exhibit and not start the penguins first, because we've been informed that we probably would not even be allowed to have the penguins until we have the vet facility because they have to be quarantined. And we have to have an adequate facility to do that, and then a facility that will meet the needs to take care of the penguins. So it's another reason we want to do it all at the same time. And also just to be aware of costs. We all know if we put anything off, it's probably going to cost more to do it later and add things piecemeal. It's cheaper now with interest rates going up, with inflation, with further COVID-related price and supply problems. And just one final thought is that the vet and education building is so necessary, as the person spoke earlier, because we have so many more animals now than we had almost 30 years ago when our current vet facility was built. So the size and scope of the vet and education building are very critical to our future success at the zoo and even future reaccreditation with AZA, because that was part of our presentation to get reaccredited this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Consuelo Morin, followed by Elijah Ross.
Mayor and City Council, thank you for having me. My name is Consuelo Morin, and I'm here to speak against the Grace Act. You know, in the 10 Commandments, it says, you know, we shall not murder. And we should be the voice for the innocent that isn't here to fight for themselves. They don't have a voice, and we should be that voice for them. We should stand in the gap for them, and, you know, we're actually even, you know, when we stick, you know, our police officers into it where they're not able to defend life, they're there to protect us, they're there to defend our rights, and when they're not able to do that for an unborn child, that's just crazy to me. But we should be a voice for the innocent, and I'm here to just say that not to pass that, you know, to protect life, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elijah Ross, followed by Ephraim Herring.
Hello, my name is Elijah Ross. I'm 13 years old, and I have to say it's a shame that grown adults are out here fighting for the murder of infants. I mean, I used to think this was the best country in the world. Please don't turn a blind eye to murder.
Thank you. Next, we have Ephraim Herring. Before you speak, Mr. Herring, I have a couple other cards. The next cards, John Wilkinson, Nancy Lacey, Tom Harrison, and Carlton Cashaw. Mr. Herring.
I'm not here to speak about the Grace Act. I'm here to speak about Resolution 2022-512. That's on the, y'all already passed it already. But what brought my attention to this, on June 27, 2020, everybody hear about sex trafficking, but one of the things I've been dealing with since I've been a trooper has been labor trafficking. Those are people that come to do labor. The reason why that came up because when Neighbor's Waco worked on my house, they had a couple people that was working there that had dealt with during my occupation as DPS for labor trafficking. So, but the things I need to address is, on this approval there's nothing in there that says about ensuring that all city regulations are met when your partners build the house. There's nothing that I've seen about following the approved plans by the city of Waco. My house was built by one of your partners. The house, 2017, I've been complaining about it ever since 2017, and it still has not fixed. I put in a request for an investigation, and I'm just asking if there's an investigation because I got a phone call on July 28th that really shocked me that somebody would call me about that, since I put in a request for an investigation in July 7th of 2022. And I have not heard back from y'all on that. So if there's gonna be an investigation, do I need to move to somebody else on the investigation? That's why I'm coming to y'all and asking. If you can't answer that question, I understand. I'll just move on to the next person in line to do the investigation. Thank you for your time. But again, the other thing I asked about is the YMCA. I understand it. Y'all doing a good job of keeping it clean when nobody's there. Could you move the trash by cans that they took off of Wilbur Austin Park and put them back so we can use them? Because right now they're not being used, sent to the YMCA because nobody can use the YMCA. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Next I have John Wilkinson, followed by Nancy Lacey. And as a reminder, we have just under 40 minutes left before another motion would have to be made and a big stack of cards.
Mr. Mayor, thank you to the council. You've gone above and beyond the call of duty tonight. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. We've been discussing abortion, whether it's been said directly or not, but abortion is not the problem that we face. It's our relationship with the Lord. And that is it simply. Abortion is simply a symptom of that problem of our relationship. You are God's appointed leaders for this city of Waco. You have a divine appointment. And with Waco, also throughout McLennan County. Waco is the prime city. Anything that you do affects everyone across our county. Our God is a God of laws, and He is a God of righteousness. His laws and His righteousness, not man's. He willingly blesses and He willingly punishes, depending on how we keep His laws. And He showed His willingness when He sacrificed His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. He paid the ultimate penalty, the death penalty, for our sins. As the elected representatives of Waco, God's appointment of each of you was to rule as to the best of your ability, justly and righteously, and in accordance with God's righteous laws. The proposal that we've discussed tonight would permit the continued taking of human life and doing it by deliberate inaction. And I've got to tell you that there is no difference between a positive judgment to permit something and a willful looking the other way and refusing to deal righteously with what the law says, whatever it happens to be. God blesses those who strive to keep His righteousness. And even though we all face His judgment in our hearts when we do fall, and we all do, Waco has a heart. The city has a heart. And God judges that. The pronouncements of this council speak for the city, and you are the ones that will stand, not individually in this case, but as a council, you are the ones that stand before God that says this is what Waco's heart is. And the question is Waco's heart with Him or with other things? Moses was speaking to the children of Israel just before he was taken away. And he gave them a choice of blessing
Thank you.
or curse.
Next we have Nancy Lacey.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me to address the City Council tonight. My name is Nancy Lacey. I've lived in Waco my entire life. I've been active in the community through board work and committee work. I'm here tonight as a taxpayer. I sit on the Cameron Park Zoological and Botanical Society board. I've been involved with the zoo since 1986. And just as a footnote, since y'all were talking about the Brazos River walk, we were the original anchor for the River Walk and the start of the revitalization of the downtown Waco. So I just thought that that would be interesting. So with that said, the Society and the City of Waco and McLennan County Commissioners have been in a long-standing partnership to pass 3 county bonds to design and build a world-class zoo while maintaining the level of excellence among our peers with the AZA, and our local taxpayers have come to expect that standard. We have recently received the acclaimed top 50 zoos in the country by TripAdvisor, which we are very proud of. The Society has never failed to bring in the necessary funding for every new exhibit in the zoo, including the additional funding needed for from the original bond and from the bond of 2000. It is imperative the city, the county, and the Society work together to ensure that this bond project maintains the same quality and standard that our zoo has worked so hard to achieve. The Society has already committed $1.2 million to the veterinary hospital and penguin exhibit prior to the bond. I feel that it is important to keep the education veterinary hospital complex and the penguin exhibit and plaza funded and moving forward as designed in order to give our patrons and the facility what they expect and deserve. The Society has also raised our $2 million from the original agreement that we had discussed in the Zoo Commission meeting. We had agreed that we would split it, the Society, the county, and the city for the overages that were caused from delays, COVID, inflation, logistics backlog, multiple reasons. The Society is ready to step up with our additional $1.4 million to help fund the added alternates in the Penguin Project, which includes the SSP black-footed cats, the family restrooms with adult changing tables as per AZA accreditation, and the level viewing plaza to enhance the visitor's experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tom Harrison, followed by Carlton Cashaw. And Jack Hill. Any of these people here? Tom Harrison, Carlton Cashaw, or Jack Hill? Mr. Hill? All right, before you speak, I'm going to call the next 5 cards, which are Raylene Silver, Donna Jernigan, Kara Kirby, Cedric Davis, and Marsha Michael. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
You all should have a handout. It's a blue handout with an attachment on it. So we got, very good. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jack Hill. I'm a retired professor, a resident of Waco's 4th District, and a father of 2 lovely daughters and 6 grandchildren. Mr. Meek, you are on record stating that discussing abortion law is not under the city's purview. But the Grace Act, passed by the Denton and Austin City Councils, will not supersede Texas abortion law. Rather, it is an ethical initiative designed to ameliorate some of the draconian effects of that law. The act is about what we can do locally right here in Waco. Since the Dobbs decision to safeguard the rights of women to a whole range of health care services that are now under threat, as you've heard this evening. 3 key facts. Doctors are running scared. You've heard about that tonight. They or anyone who is suspected of aiding or abetting an illegal abortion can be sued big time. This has had, as it was mentioned earlier, a chilling effect on doctors. Some are now even waiting until a patient is hemorrhaging or having organ failure. Second, women's lives hang in the balance. Those with medically complex pregnancies or pre-existing conditions are being forced to delay abortion care until the situation becomes life-threatening. Policing pregnancies costs money and precious police time that could be spent tracking sexual assault or domestic violence. The GRACE Act addresses all this. It calls for nothing more than A, limiting sitting funds for gathering evidence about abortions, and B, deprioritizing enforcement of criminal laws surrounding abortion. Both are entirely legal. Both are under the council's purview. Look, folks, this is not just a council matter. This is a life and death matter. Don't think that by simply listening that you've done your job or you've somehow stayed neutral. On the dividing issues of our time, silence is complicity. Not to act is to take a side. It's to stand with those who would impose their will on Waco's women, monitoring their private movements and mining their most intimate data. I don't think any of you want our daughters to grow up in a world like that. Do the right thing. Put the GRACE Act on next meeting's agenda and see the attached for
Thank
some
you.
suggested wording.
Next
Thank
we have
you.
Raylene Silver, followed by Dr. Donna Jernigan. And for those taking up the full 3 minutes, we have a full stack of cards and less than 30 minutes before we'll need to amend or extend the meeting. Raylene Silver, Dr. Donna Jernigan, Kara Kirby,
Mayor, council members, thank you for the extension tonight. I'll tell you straight up, I don't want to be here tonight. I don't represent a party or a powerful lobby. I didn't come armed with a list of talking points that I found on the internet. I'm not an activist. I'm just a mom, got 5 kids, live here in Waco, District 4. I want a quiet life. I decided I need to be here tonight when I heard about this so-called GRACE Act. Even the name is counterproductive and divisive. My family did not welcome this brand of corrosive politics and political maneuvering to the city of Waco. It degrades trust in our city government and politicizes our police force. It ties their hands from dealing with the crimes occurring in our city. It nullifies nullifying state laws that we don't like in the heat of the moment after a high-stakes legal correction raises the cultural temperature and accelerates extremism on both sides. I have 5 children, like I said. I don't want them to live in a city policed according to political whims. It undermines foundational trust in our council. In fact, it's graceless. I was raised to respect my fellow citizens and to behave rationally even when I feel emotional, and to respect the rule of law, working through the equalizing legislative process in quiet prayer for reforms that make a strong society. I respectfully request that the council consider this act and any others like it that make our police the arm of their political will as beneath their dignity, for the simple fact that it is. It also struck me tonight that the beautiful passage of the Unbound, the support for the Unbound House earlier this evening. Abortion feeds. it is the big part of the problem. It feeds the traffickers. It lets them thrive. It also feeds child abusers and lets them thrive. Please, don't go down this road, and don't make my children live in a city that prizes political power over the common good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Cedric Davis, then Marsha Michael. Ms. Michael. And I'm going to go ahead and read the next 5 cards since Ms. Michael, before Ms. Michael. I have Janie Ivy, followed by Stacy Ross, followed by Devin Poole, followed by Cecile McDowell. Thank you, ma'am.
Mayor, council members, and citizens, all the points have been made tonight already, and it's going to be redundant at this late a date to go over all of them, but I have a lot of California refugees who have surrounded me as neighbors and new citizens in Waco and McLennan County in Texas. Those refugees have escaped cities and states that are trying to divert or subvert the rule of law. And that is what I object to most. I brag continually about what great law enforcement we have in McLennan County and in Waco. And it would be disappointing to me to have to go back and choke on that braggadocious narrative I've had about Waco being a place of choice. Those refugees came here because they were escaping Portland or LA or other blue city or states. Why would they want to stay in a city that starts to take over legislative responsibilities that aren't theirs? You know, we had a lot of discussion about abortion. Obviously, I am against that. I am a Christian, but more importantly, I don't want our rule of law to be subverted by people who really don't have the responsibility to do that. You're not legislators. So please, I ask you to use wisdom and discernment. Make Waco and McLennan County a great place to be where refugees from blue cities and states can come and feel safe and know that the law will be supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have Janie Ivy, followed by Stacy Ross. Janie Ivy. Stacy Ross. Stacy. Oh, it's Janie. Sorry.
Thank you very much for staying. Mayor Meeks and all of you, thank you for this privilege. I am a child rescuer. My father fought for this country, joined the U.S. Navy at 17. He'd roll over in his grave if he saw you wonderful Wacoans supporting life. And I am proud to say that I am a teacher, and I teach children all over Waco and Robinson. In this little book, it shows babies safe with their mothers and daddies. And Waco should be a very, very important place because it is the heart of Texas, right? So have a heart for the unborn. You love the animals. I love your zoo. I rescue animals. But have a heart because we all will answer someday what we did for the unborn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jesus loves you. May I end up with a song? He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world. In his hands, he's got the whole world. In his hands, he's got itty bitty baby In his hands he's got the itty bitty baby. In his hands he's got the itty bitty baby. In his hands he's got the whole wide world in his hands.
Thank you. Next, we have Stacy Ross.
My name is Stacy Ross. I'm here to do what's right because that's what we were taught that we were supposed to do. But nowadays the children are so confused because of all the adults that go around and try to make it seem like killing little bitty babies inside of a womb where they're supposed to be protected is okay. And confusing my children, confusing them about everything. Do you want them to respect all the other laws that are out there? Or do you just want all the kids to just say forget the laws because the people that are supposed to be role models in our community are going to suggest that we break the laws? I'm so upset right now. I'm upset that I had to bring my children up here. They had to speak. Everybody could barely speak. My husband. Everybody has to, because we're not going to sit there and let somebody suggest that it's okay to override the laws, and we're not going to stand up and say that's not right. And that's why we're here.
Thank you.
And the threats on the internet also, and the bribery to the local politicians or the government officials, that we're going to get an organized group of murderers to pay the politicians that are willing to go against the law and to abort the babies. I read the article. Everybody in this room read the article. There was threats saying that you're going to watch the district attorney and everybody else. We're watching too.
Thank you. Next we have Devin Cole, followed by Cecile McDowell.
The opportunity to be heard and for staying. My name is Devin Poole. I'm the father of a 5-year-old, and I came at the request of my pastor. I'm a member of Open Door, and I'm a believer. I stand in solidarity with everything that the believers have said. So to what they've said, I say amen. And thank you for the powerful testimonies that have been shared and the difficult testimonies. It may be considered anecdotal evidence, but the fact is that hearts are affected by the decision to end life in the womb. I appreciate the strong arguments for the constitutionality of this particular bill, and I just wanted to, speak on some observations that I've noticed from people in support. I noticed that there's a discrepancy between the argument that the ordinance does not legalize abortions and instead deprioritizes the law enforcement's investigation of abortions. Yet the proponents of this argument are advocating to protect doctors and medical professionals who would offer life-saving procedures to women. They also say this bill disproportionately affects minorities and encourages prosecution of women who have had miscarriages. I do agree in the potentiality that minorities would be disproportionately affected as they are with any other criminal any other enforcement of any criminal statute. Accountability for the prosecution and investigation of abortions as well as any other crime is the solution for perceived abuse of power or violation of due process rights. There's potential for abuse of power throughout all branches of government, and that's why we have checks and balances. Another argument appears to be that children who are victims of rape may be forced to carry and deliver. While it is a reality, I'm not sure what percentage of the 60+ million abortions that have historically occurred since Roe versus Wade are as a result of this particular circumstance. But my guess is that it's on the fringe of what is being called access to health care. It also seems to me that if children don't have, if the idea is that they need to receive health care because of a rape, a child conceived of rape, we all know that children can't consent to sex for very good reasons. So it seems to me that if they don't have the cognitive ability to consent to sex, why should they be allowed to make a decision about having an abortion? And why would we label that health care? The idea that doctors should be in fear of offering life-saving procedures seems to contradict the fact that an abortion is a life-ending procedure. Doctors and medical professionals, like any other citizens, have nothing to fear as long as they're following the law. And of course, I said, that this bill is about supposedly deprioritizing investigation and procedure, investigation and.
Thank you. Next I have John Kerr.
Can I say one thing? I think that, instead of passing this GRACE Act or discussing the GRACE Act, that we would be better off maybe proposing
Thank you, sir.
a better idea for how to, investigate
sir.
and prosecute potential the law breaking,
Okay.
rather than just
Sure. Thank you, sir.
blindly consenting to
Have a good
something
night.
else.
Thank you. Next we have John Kerr, followed by Warren Fain, followed by Josh Teetons, followed by John Piscata.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. First of all, my last name is actually pronounced Carr.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Everybody mispronounces it, so it's okay. I practice law in Hewitt. I'm a 39-year, 7-month veteran of the military, both active and reserves. And I've got 3 great loves in my life. The first one is my love for the Lord. He has saved me, and that guides my feelings towards abortion. But we're not here to talk about in favor of abortion or not in favor of abortion. The second thing is my family. I love my family, and I'm glad that I've got them, that God has blessed me with it. And the third thing is I love our constitutional republic. Our constitutional republic is based on a couple of things as identified by John Adams. One of them is morality and religion. And those things are dependent upon following the rule of law. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Putting the item on an agenda to discuss this grace provision is actually a frontal assault to the rule of law. Texas has decided that in Texas, we're not going to allow abortions now that Roe v. Wade is overturned. And Roe v. Wade did not make abortions illegal. It just simply sent the issue back to the state. During the past legislative session, I was the chairman of the Abolish Abortion Subcommittee of the Legislative Priorities Committee of the Texas State Republican Executive Committee, and I was deeply involved in work to pass the trigger bill and the heartbeat bill. So I am excited that in Texas, our rule of law is that we are not going to allow abortion. There have been some misstatements here tonight, the biggest of which says that the woman can be prosecuted. It clearly is not the case. So all the parade of horribles about they're going to investigate women and do this, that's just simply not so. So our point here is that under the rule of law, since Texas says we're not going to allow abortions, but we are going to go after those who violate the law, such as the medical professionals that participate in that, that's really no different than saying that a physician or a nurse or some other medical professional, if they went into a hospital room and suffocated the patient by use of a pillow, well, we're going to low prioritize that because that we don't like that. We don't have the luxury of saying, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next I have Warren Fain, followed by Josh Teetons.
Thank you for your patience with all the different speakers. I realize that no date has been set yet for the upcoming possible vote on a GRACE Act ordinance and even whether it will come up. But if this ordinance would ever pass the Waco City Council, it would be a monumental travesty, a mistake of inestimable proportion. Let's look at Texas history for some instruction. In June of 1865, some Texas officials in Galveston, Texas, and no doubt other locations, had conspired to keep the news of President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, issued on January 1st, 1863, affecting the 10 Confederate states still in rebellion, including Texas, from reaching the African-American community of those held in involuntary servitude. In other words, Texas slaves weren't informed about this. This executive order declared freedom for all slaves in the Confederate states. not under Union Army control at the time. Even when the Civil War came to an end with General Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, on April 9, 1865, the Texas slaveholding interests refused to publicize the Emancipation Proclamation to the more than 250,000 slaves still in bondage in Texas. As you no doubt know now, on the morning of June 19, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger joined more than 2,000 federal troops on the island of Galveston, Texas. He issued a proclamation that included, quote, all slaves are free, and additionally that, quote, an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, quote, unquote, would be enforced. And in fact, General Granger had arrived with specific orders to enforce the emancipation of all slaves. The African-American slave population of Galveston soon, and other Texas communities as well, now could rejoice as free men and women. Sadly, they had been kept from this glorious news for 2.5 years by slaveholding interests in Texas. As we all can acknowledge, a certain portion of the human family had been denied the inalienable rights of life and liberty for more than 200 years of our nation's history. Finally, with Juneteenth as the Texas Emancipation Day of June 19, 1865 came to be known, African-American slaves could begin their long journey to full respect and standing as citizens of the United States. When any segment of society, of humanity, an ethnic group, the disabled, women, senior citizens, or preborn children in the womb, is singled out for discrimination and denial of the universal human rights of life and liberty, society has committed a grave injustice. We are imploring the City of Waco members and Mayor Dillon Meek to refuse to deny life and liberty to Central Texas preborn children. Do not join with the oppressors of the post-Civil War Texas who withheld the knowledge of freedom and liberty from African-American slaves. Rather, vigorously enforce the duly passed laws of the Texas legislature protecting the life and liberty of preborn children. For 49 years, until June 24, 2022, these prenatal human beings, with heartbeats as early as 3 weeks gestation, these children were a segment of our society that had no legal protection from those who would deny their basic and unalienable rights.
Next, we have Josh Teetens. Thank you,
Please
sir.
do not consider such an ordinance.
Thank you. Next, we have Josh Teetens. Josh?
Good evening. My name is Josh Teetens, and I'm excited to be your next district attorney. Here in our community, we believe in the rule of law and law and order, and these laws protect the preborn. And as an adopted son, I'm grateful that my mother chose life, and I would ask that this council never consider the Grace Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Piscata.
Thank you for this opportunity. I want to commend all of you on the City Council for hanging with this evening and past my bedtime. But a couple points I just want to reemphasize that have been made by the pro-life side is that for the vast majority of situations, abortion is not health care. It's a perfectly healthy mom, perfectly healthy baby. And another point that's been made that I just like to see made is that many women are hurting badly. I'm often challenged. You're a guy, what do you have any right to talk about this? I've seen the pain. And I was pleased that you were able to see some of that pain tonight. I'm here to talk about history, and this is in your packet. And it was an ad that Pro-Life Waco, I'm the director of Pro-Life Waco, put in the Waco Tribune Herald in 2013 after 15 years of abortion in Waco, reaching 17,782 abortions in our city. I do love Waco. I want to be proud of Waco. I want to be prouder of Waco. Waco has had since January of 1994 a scar on our city. And this first happened during this time, 2011, at 1927, Columbus Avenue, where 17,000 babies died. And there's a lot of moms that are still hurting from these babies. from these abortions. And then they moved on, Planned Parenthood, to 1121 Ross Avenue. A little history lesson for you youngsters here. And they aborted babies there. In 2017, they moved on to 700 West Highway 6, and they've aborted babies there. I'm grateful that the killing is not happening in August. And so it really struck a nerve to be talking about the city, my city, after all this time, when now the killing has stopped, to be saying, hey, we can undercut it this way and this way and this way. I look forward to the day when Planned Parenthood on Highway 6 is closed and true health care will be provided at that location.
Thank you. That's all the cards I have tonight, and it's 10:26, so by ordinance, we have to end our meeting. Seeing no one else, we will close the hearing of visitors and adjourn this meeting at 10:26 p.m. Thank you, everybody.